Imagine for a second an eBay where you could buy, well, almost anything, and you could do it completely anonymously. In 2012, this wasn't some sci-fi fantasy. It was very, very real. So today, let's pull back the curtain on one of the most talked about, most notorious corners of the early internet.
Yup, this was the Silk Road, an anonymous online marketplace that lived in the hidden parts of the web. And it wasn't just some fringe website. It ignited this massive firestorm of a debate with politicians and law enforcement, forcing them to face a kind of digital black market they'd never seen before.
So what exactly was this thing? Well, the easiest way to wrap your head around it is to think of it just like an Amazon marketplace or an eBay. Silk Road didn't sell anything itself. No. It was the platform, the digital mall that let anonymous sellers connect with anonymous buyers.
And the way they pulled this off was with a really powerful three-part system. First, to even get to the site, you had to use the Tor network, which hid your location and identity. Second, for the money, everything was done in Bitcoin, which offered another layer of anonymity. And third, and this is the secret sauce, they had an escrow system. The site would hold your money until you confirmed you got your package. That's how they built trust.
Okay, so that's the how it worked. But the big question is, what was really going on in there? And how can we possibly know for sure? Well, for this explainer, we're not just going on rumors. We're digging into a landmark 2013 study that scraped the site for 6 straight months, giving us this incredible inside look.
So get this, a researcher over at Carnegie Mellon University managed to download the site's public pages every single day for half a year. We're not talking about guesswork here. This was a serious, academic look at how this marketplace actually worked.
And the scale of this operation is just staggering. Over that 6-month period, the study cataloged nearly 25,000 unique items for sale. Just let that sink in for a second. It's like someone turned the lights on inside this huge, hidden economy for the very first time.
So, of all those items, what was actually for sale? Well, yeah, you could find some other stuff like books, but let's be honest, the data tells a really clear story. Weed was the #1 category. In fact, if you look at the top 20 categories on the whole site, 16 of them were for drugs.
And you can imagine this caused a massive shockwave. Politicians were stunned. You had U.S. Senator Charles Schumer calling it, quote, more brazen than anything else by light years, and he was publicly demanding that law enforcement find a way to shut it down.
All right, so we know what was for sale. But let's talk about the who. Who were the people actually doing the selling? When the study looked at where the sellers were shipping from, the answer was pretty surprising. The United States was #1, and not by a little, by a lot. Over 43% of all listings. The UK and the Netherlands came in a distant second and third, which, kind of makes sense given the whole site was in English.
But here's the twist. This was not some stable group of sellers. The data showed a super high turnover rate. For most people, selling on Silk Road was a very short-term gig.
This timeline really paints a picture of the churn. I mean, look at this. Within just 3 weeks, about a fifth of new sellers were just gone. By the 100-day mark, half of them had vanished. But, and this is the really crucial part, a small, dedicated group managed to stick it out for the long haul.
How small? Just 112 sellers. This core group was active for the entire 6 months of the study. They were the power sellers, the reliable backbone in a place where everyone else was coming and going. So how did they do it? It all boiled down to one thing: trust.
And the data on that is, frankly, kind of astonishing. Remember, this is an illegal, anonymous marketplace. You'd expect it to be full of scams, right? Well, nope. Over 96% of the feedback ratings were a perfect 5 out of 5 stars. This proves something really powerful, that you could actually engineer a system of trust between total strangers in a completely lawless environment.
So, okay, the trust system worked. But what about the cash? Let's follow the money and see how the economics of this whole hidden marketplace actually worked.
This part is just fascinating. So, Bitcoin at the time, as you can see on the left, was a total roller coaster. The value was swinging wildly. So if you're a seller, how do you deal with that? Well, they did something brilliant. They didn't price their stuff in Bitcoin. They priced it in stable US dollars. And the result? Take a look at the chart on the right. You get this incredibly stable internal economy, totally shielded from the chaos of crypto.
So just how big was this economy? The study estimated that during this time, the marketplace was doing about 1.22 million US dollars in sales every single month.
And for the anonymous people running the site, That turned into a pretty nice payday. They were pulling in an estimated $92,000 a month, just from their commissions.
And their fee structure was surprisingly sophisticated. It looked a lot like what eBay does. They used a sliding scale, taking a bigger cut from smaller sales and a smaller percentage from the really expensive items.
So let's zoom out and look at the big picture here. The fact that a marketplace like Silk Road could even exist and work so well and be so profitable, well, that created a massive new headache for policymakers and law enforcement.
The study lays out 4 ways they could have tried to deal with it, and none of them were easy. You could try to attack the Tor network, but you'd end up hurting activists and journalists who need it for safety. You could go after Bitcoin, but it's decentralized all over the world. You could try to seize more packages, but the sheer volume is just impossible. Or, and this was the really controversial idea, you could just do nothing, a hands-off approach.
And that really leaves us with the central question that Silk Road forced everyone to ask. What happens when technology makes it possible to build a marketplace that is basically designed to resist the old tools of regulation and law enforcement? It's a question that honestly we're all still grappling with today.